Starting out with Helene here on the latest, and we've got plenty of information swirling around today. Lots of people talking about ticks off to the west or shifts off to the west on the storm overall here. Trying to ease your worries. We really haven't seen that much in the way of shifts. It's only shifted about 8 to 10 miles off to the west, still centered over eastern Franklin County as a landfalling point at about 7 p.m. I'm going to tell you, as I told you yesterday, and if you've been paying attention to the forecast, this is going to look like it's coming right at us through the day today and throughout the day tomorrow. It's going to be riding a trough boundary, which it's already embedded in. So anybody that is a meteorologist that is saying that this is going to continue to shift off to the west or shift significantly off to the west, they're not paying attention because there's a trough that is embedded in this storm, and it's going to ride just on the east side of that trough. It's already in place. You can already see it on radar across our area as well as the satellite presentation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well here in a minute. But overall, no, I am very confident that this is a landfalling system in Franklin County or possibly even Wakulla County. I highly doubt we're talking about anything further off to the west than Franklin County as far as a landfalling system. In fact, it may actually be a little further off to the east. I think that by tonight, we'll probably see the cone in the identical spot it was last night. It's not that far off from it at the current moment. The last update actually was a slight shift off to the east. Still west of Tallahassee, but still off to the east, basically right over Carabel. That is where the current forecast cone does have this system going. So you can see Helene here started off really nice and concentric earlier on this morning, starting to widen out now as that trough axis is grabbing it and it is embedded in that trough. So you can see how it's being stretched off to the north and stretched off to the north and east. That is that upper low that's working on it as well as that trough axis that's working on it. Here's the latest spaghetti models. Again, the two lines that you see moving through Gulf County there, that is the old official cone, so that is the last cone, as well as the Navy's experimental hurricane model. So not one that is all that qualified. The rest of them are basically right over the top of Carabel, including where the new cone is, which is directly over the top of Carabel. So again, I am 90+% positive this is going to be a landfalling system on the east side of Franklin County or possibly Wakulla County if it does end up just on the east side of that guidance. If it ends up just on the west side of that guidance, it's still in Franklin County. So again, this is really tight grouping as far as the system goes and confidence in the hurricane models and confidence in the global models as well. If you're wondering where the GFS and the Euro have it, they have it making landfall basically Carabel or Alligator Point. So on top of our spaghetti models that are there as well. So that means Liberty, Gulf, Calhoun, Jackson, Bay, Holmes, Washington, and Walton County. Guess what? You are on the western side of the storm. Only Franklin County and the eastern portions of Franklin County, as well as going up into Wakulla and Leon County, only those spots are we seeing the possibility of the east side of the storm working on through, which is where the wind is going to be with this system. We're going to see the wind around the center of the storm as well as on the east side of the system. The west side of the system will have a large field of tropical storm force winds, but it's not going to be carrying the same weight as the center and the east side of this system, as this is going to be sheared off to the north and east. So overall, most of our area, this is still relatively a non-wind event outside of really Liberty and Franklin counties, which we're going to see the strongest winds there. We're still going to see hurricane conditions in other locations, and hurricane conditions, anything above 50 miles an hour can cause damage. So there will be some minor damage across the area from wind, but outside of Franklin, possibly eastern Liberty County, seeing the worst of the wind. Outside of those areas, we're probably looking at little in the way of wind damage from the area, with the western side of the system posing far less of a wind threat. Speaking of the trough, you can see the frontal boundary, which is now on the western side of the area. That will hang out there, and we're slowly going to build that boundary back, which is where we had the flash flood warnings. We'll see another trough axis start to develop there because it is still there. It has not moved. We've just removed some of that lift back off to the south. So we'll see rain redevelop back across Gulf and Franklin County and extending up into Liberty, as well as Calhoun. That will start as we go through the evening hours tonight and then continue through the day tomorrow as well. So Lots of rain on the way. Outside of the wind in central and eastern portions of Franklin County, the rain is the biggest concern here. As again, this is already embedded in the trough. You can see our Futurecast here highlighting that quite nicely. That trough axis continues to close the door on the storm as it lifts off to the north, and it rides it just off to the east. So again, if you're watching the storm closely over the next day or two, it's going to look like it's headed right toward us, but eventually the core of that storm will end up just off to our east. Working by about 3 o'clock, we'll see the worst of the weather really across the area by that point in time. And by the time we get to 6, 7 o'clock, we should be seeing that eye wall, that left banding in that part of the trough working into Franklin County, and that's where the strongest winds will be, as well is going to be right in the core of that storm. That eye likely goes directly over Tallahassee as well, and then it works up into Georgia and eventually on the east side of Atlanta as well. So by 10 p.m. on Thursday, most of our area will be entirely done with this storm. We still have some lingering showers, and by midnight, we're going to be completely dry. We'll have lingering showers around for your Friday and Saturday as that upper low just absorbs this storm and sits there and spins. But overall, we'll just have a southwest wind for Saturday and Sunday. Should be relatively nice conditions to get out and clean up whatever we have to out there, because certainly we're going to be dealing with, again, I believe the biggest story for our area is rain, not wind. Wind is going to be a major issue into Franklin County, probably eastern portions of Liberty County, Gadsden County, Wakulla County, and Leon County. That's where the strongest winds will go, and then we'll likely see very strong winds in Jefferson as well as Taylor counties too. So those areas, that's probably where the worst of the wind goes. Hurricane conditions are possible in Gulf, Liberty, Calhoun, and Jackson County. That's why there is a hurricane warning there. And then we do have a tropical storm warning for Bay, Washington, as well as Holmes and Walton counties. Those also included, meaning tropical storm conditions are possible there. So we could see winds over 40 miles an hour and under 74 in those areas. I think for the most part, Bay County, Washington County, Holmes County, and Walton County probably see winds under 50 miles an hour. I think it's unlikely that we see winds over 55 in either Bay County or Washington or Holmes County unless we see a shift to the west, which, again, this is embedded into the trough, and I just don't see that happening. Flooding is not only likely here, I think it should be expected, because we're going to see a very large area picking up 10 to 12 inches of rain. On top of that, we also have inundation, 5 to 9 feet across Franklin County, and have bumped it up to 2 to 4 feet across places like Port St. Joe. And then 10 to 15 feet actually needs to be adjusted to 12 to 18 with a local maximum of 20 feet through the bend. So this is going to produce some very, very large storm surge that will be mostly concentrated up into the bend through Wakulla, Jefferson, and Taylor counties. But portions of, say, Alligator Point could see substantial water rise, especially if we do get a storm to come in, say, just to the west of Carabel as opposed to the east of Carabel. You would extend that storm surge in. So here's the wind field, and this is what I'm talking about. The wind will be strongest around the core and off to the north and east side of the storm. You'll note, as we pause it at 4 p.m. here, Panama City highlighting 30, 35 mile per hour winds, Carabel at 36 there, and then Tallahassee at 27. And then as this core gets just a little bit closer, there you see it all ramp up. So the strongest winds right there through the central portion of Franklin County and eastern portions of Franklin County. And then that core does extend up into Liberty County, but as currently forecasted, if this stays on the east side of Franklin County and then rolls over Tallahassee, then Bluntstown, Bristol, you would actually stay out of the core, meaning gusts were probably under 60 miles per hour. If you get into the core, then you could see those gusts up over 60 miles per hour. But what's impressive here is that this is going to carry winds well inland, as it will likely be moving inland at about 20 miles an hour at landfall. So not going to weaken a whole lot as it works up toward Albany and Macon. We could see tropical storm force wind gusts, possibly close to hurricane force wind gusts, all the way up into North Georgia in the early morning hours on Friday, because this makes landfall by about 7 p.m. Central Time in the Bend. And then by 2 a.m., it's already up over Atlanta. So this is going to be absolutely flying inland, which is good news because that means we don't have to deal with it for very long. It'll just be a few hours of some really bad weather. But the rain is going to be quite substantial if we're looking at the wind forecast here after looking at the wind map overall. Where I think the major hurricane conditions are possible, certainly in and along the coastal areas of Franklin County, the eastern side of Franklin County, Alligator Point, much of Wakulla County, much of Leon County, much of Jefferson County, and portions of Taylor County. And then we'll likely see hurricane conditions, meaning winds possibly over 74 miles an hour for Southern Gulf, all of Franklin, portions of Liberty County, definitely the eastern portions of Liberty County, say Hosford, all of Gadsden County, and then eastern portions of Jackson County could also see those wind gusts up over 70 miles an hour. To the west of that, we're likely only talking about tropical storm conditions. Yes, it will be windy in Defuniak Springs and Destin, Panama City, those areas. It's going to be windy. But we're unlikely to be talking about damaging winds on our area thanks to us being on the west side of that circulation. There should be a very sharp gradient between the very strong winds and much, much weaker winds on the west side of the storm. And you can follow that basically right here. If you just take the white and red line and go on to the right side of that, that's probably where the center goes. So if you just follow along the wind map here, this would say that this makes landfall in Carabel, runs up the Liberty, Wakulla County border, goes just to the west of Tallahassee, and then runs up between Dothan and Albany. That's what this map is showing. So it is showing the current forecast wind speeds across our area. It's just this is what winds look like in a hurricane. They are much stronger at the center and on the east side where the forward motion of the storm is the same. It is much weaker on the west side where the forward motion is actually counter to the wind flow, which means you are reducing wind speeds. And then on top of that, you're also wrapping winds around land, so you're also dealing with friction. So the west side of the storm doesn't have as strong winds because of those two things. Friction and the forward motion, the vector motion of the storm actually reduces the wind field on that side. So that's why I've got the forecast. So Apalachicola absolutely could see damage there from winds. Bluntstown, Mariana, it's possible as well, even up into Dothan and Albany, but it should be on the light side as far as damaging winds go. Tallahassee, Apalachicola could be a little more severe, certainly in Tallahassee, as it looks like the storm is going to go directly over or maybe just slightly to the west. So this certainly turned into a worse scenario for Tallahassee as opposed to where it was last night, where they were basically going to be in the center or just off to the west of the storm. Now they are just off to the east of the storm. So that puts them right in line for the strongest portion of this storm. And then same thing going up into the tri-state area. So we did see everything shift off to the west just slightly here, but it did not change our forecast that much because, well, it didn't shift all that much. It still looks likely that we're talking about this into Carabel as we go into Thursday evening and then wrapping up nicely for us. But the rain, that's where I'm concerned outside of the wind in Franklin County, Wakulla, Jefferson, Leon, Taylor, and Gadsden, and portions of Liberty. It is the rain. We're going to have that trough axis inverted across our area, basically draped over the Apalachicola River all the way up to Atlanta and into the North Carolina mountains. And that area where you see red there could see 4 to 6 inches of rain all the way up, and isolated amounts of a foot plus are possible. Apalachicola, you've already seen a lot of rain today. Those areas down along the Forgotten Coastline, you're going to get a lot more. I think that flooding and flash flooding are likely with this storm. The good news, again, this all wraps up by 10 p.m. on Thursday, so we'll be able to dry out for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday without really a threat of rain there. So at least we will get through this fairly quickly, but some really nasty weather on the way for Appalach and along the Forgotten Coastline, Carabel, as well as Alligator Point. And as mentioned yesterday, the same thing I said yesterday, I say again, if you are in Carabel, if you are in St. George Island, if you are out in Alligator Point, and you can leave, please do so. There's no reason to stay when a major hurricane is threatening the area and is forecast to hit that spot. Every single line has it basically in Franklin County. That is a high likelihood that we are seeing this storm make landfall there with the strongest winds. That's where the most severe impact is going to be in our area. If you don't have to be there, please don't. If you're in Carabel, if you're in Apalachicola, if you're out there, really Appalachia is probably okay, but it is very, very close. I would be nervous if I was there. I would want to go a little further off to the west. I mean, those locations, Port St. Joe is a better option. You know, what's a better option than Port St. Joe? Panama City. If you're in Carabel, Panama City is a better option than Carabel. If you're a better option than Panama City is Destin or Walton County, anywhere in Walton County. Walton County, you're just seeing rain. Holmes County, you're just getting rain. You're going to have some wind. It's going to be breezy. It'll be nasty weather, but for the most part, this is not going to be a major event in Walton or Holmes County outside of the rain. Same thing probably applies for Washington and most of Bay County as well. So it's probably not much outside of a rain event overall. It will be windy. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be breezy. It's going to be windy. We've got a major hurricane around the area. But it's certainly not going to be what they're going to see in Franklin, maybe portions of Liberty County, and definitely portions, most of Wakulla County, possibly Leon, Gadsden, Taylor, and Jefferson as well. So again, rain here, take it seriously, take the flash flood threat seriously as well. Overall impacts, again, just to summarize here, rain is the main concern outside of Franklin County. It's going to see the worst weather. Hurricane conditions are possible for portions of Gulf, Liberty, Franklin, maybe Calhoun and Jackson County as well, seeing those hurricane conditions possibly. Less likely there, more likely up further off to the east. No real tornado threat here after today once this trough just gets assumed by the storm. We will see basically the tornado threat come to an end. So we'll be on the west side, so tornado threat not really that big a deal. Surge, the biggest issue is in Franklin County. That's where we do have that highest inundation out in Alligator Point. And then rain, flash flooding, possible if not likely. Winds, tropical storm conditions across much of the area with hurricane conditions more likely as you work toward Gulf, Liberty, and Franklin counties closer to the center of that storm. But again, thankfully this time around, we are on the west side of the storm, and it looks like that is going to be the case here. So we're on the good side. We do have to get through the rain. We've got some really bad weather around. So if you don't have to be traveling on Thursday, definitely don't. We're going to be dealing with flash flooding, high winds, and all of those issues. Again, if you're in Franklin County, you have the option to leave. Please do so. There are better options. You don't have to go that far. You just need to go west slightly. You really don't need to go that far to get out of harm's way. And again, a better option from Carabel is Apalachicola. I wouldn't really want to be in Appalachia either, but in Apalachicola, the better option is Port St. Joe. You know, in Port St. Joe, the better option is probably Panama City. And if you want to get out of the weather altogether, you just go to the west of Okaloosa, and you're probably dealing with nothing. So if that's what you want, if that's what you're wanting to do, you don't have to go far. You don't have to go 8-9 hours away. You really only need to go about 2 hours off to the west, and you can escape this storm. If you're uncomfortable at all, I would advise that. There's no reason to hang around if you don't want to be here. If the storm's making you nervous, if you're anxious about any of those things, settle your mind. It really, for the most part, everyone outside of Franklin County probably is going to be back at their home on Friday. Franklin County might be a little bit longer, especially since we are talking about 9 foot of water rise in that county. I'm willing to bet 98 there on the St. George Sound side is probably washed out in a lot of spots. So keep that in mind if you are in Franklin County and you're deciding not to leave. You may not be able to leave even after the storm is gone, because you might have roads washed out with that inundation. So keep that in mind too. You might be stuck wherever you are for a while. So if I'm you and I'm in Franklin County, I'm getting out. I'm not staying there. Even portions, say, of Gulf County closer to Appalachia, south side, Indian Pass, you're probably fine. This is probably to your east, but it's close. And if it's me, I'm not taking that risk. So you make the assessment that is best for you and your situation and your family, but be smart about it and definitely try to be safe. Don't try to make a decision now and then regret it later. You can always come back if you leave. Always. So just putting that out there. If you stay and you get stuck, then you made that decision. So again, I think we're going to wrap it up here, but we are going to be doing cut-ins from this point at the top of the hour, every hour on News 13 here at WMBB, so you can keep it tuned into the channel there as well. Check out mypanhandle.com/weather for the latest information, updates, and alerts there as well if you go to the alerts page. And always the very useful Storm Track 13 app. I will remind you that the cone overlay you can observe and track on your own. It is in the radar. You can also overlay the hurricane models there as well. And you can even have access to the Futurecast and Future Radar on the Storm Track 13 app. So it is very handy, especially in these tropical situations, of keeping up with what's going on and what's the latest of all of that. So that's going to do it for this update. But again, you can check back in on mypanhandle.com, the Storm Track 13 app, or obviously we'll be on air talking about this storm at 5, 6, and 10 o'clock tonight, and then we'll carry coverage for you as we go through the day tomorrow. So keep it right here for the latest, but right now, not a whole lot of change in the forecast, maybe just a slight uptick in wind intensity across the area with that slight shift to the west. Overall, not a whole lot of change from where we were yesterday. That's going to do it for now. Check back in with us as we go through the next 20 hours or so.